Good morning, Mike, Managing Directors and Global Partners. Here is your news brief for Tuesday, June 30th, 2015. As Greece enters its second day of bank holiday, reports and pictures of empty shelves in grocery stores and other shops are making their way around the internet. After the week-long bank closures were announced, consumers lined up at ATMs to withdraw as many euros as they could and then stocked up on food, gas, and other necessities. But the inability of store owners to pay their suppliers will make it impossible for them to restock their shelves. This is because Greece is not a production economy and relies heavily on imports. With the banks being closed and capital controls in place, businesses are not able to send payments out of the country. Even after the banks reopen next week, if they do indeed open, these supply chain interruptions are expected to remain as vendors will probably demand payment up front rather than risk extending credit to customers with uncertain cash flow. A nationwide referendum is scheduled for this coming Sunday in which Greek citizens will decide for themselves if they are willing to accept reduced pension benefits and higher taxes in exchange for more aid from Europe. However, Europe has said that if the country fails to make its debt payment today, which Greece does not intend to pay, the aid that was previously offered will be taken off the table, so the vote could be meaningless by then. In any case, if the referendum is held, it will be interesting to see what percentage of Greeks want to reject more debt and how many are willing to accept more austerity for more aid. Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras stands firmly against the referendum, meaning he opposes the conditions Europe has put on providing more bailout funds. In response, European officials warned Greek voters that a no vote means that Greece will effectively lose its membership in the EU. At the same time, both Standard & Poor's and Fitch have downgraded the country's credit rating, and S&P now says there is a 50-50 chance Greece will exit the euro. Next, Zero Hedge has uncovered information that reveals that JP Morgan Chase may have cornered the commodity derivatives market in Q1 of this year. According to the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency's latest quarterly report, JP Morgan's commodity derivatives book exploded from just $131 billion at the end of last year to a whopping $3.8 trillion by the end of March for a 2,900% increase. This brought the total commodity derivatives in existence to $3.9 trillion when the average amount over the previous 5 years was only around $200 billion. This unprecedented surge means that JP Morgan now owns 96% of all the commodity-related derivatives in the market today. No explanation was offered by either JP Morgan or the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency for the massive creation of new derivative contracts at the start of the year. However, Chris Powell of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee believes the U.S. government must have been involved because he says it's unlikely that a single investment bank would take such a large position on its own. He also says that the fact that the government or a bank did something so unusual and so large as this could be a sign that the powers that be are desperate to hold the system together, and this is the only way that they could do it. He called the action another example of the financial repression that the Fed and the government have resorted to keep the status quo alive. Another strange anomaly that appears in the OCC report for the first time is that gold-related derivatives were lumped in with the foreign exchange derivatives, so it is now impossible to see the exact amount of gold derivatives that exist. This is just another example of the government changing how it reports certain data to make it less detailed, less informative, and less useful. And finally, in its annual report, the Bank of International Settlements has called out the central banks of the world for their irresponsible monetary policies. The BIS says the central banks will not be able to respond when the next financial crisis breaks out because they have already used up all their ammo. It correctly says that the years of ultra-low interest rates have fueled an economic boom that has encouraged excessive risk-taking, and they will eventually come back to bite the over-indebted economies of the world. It also says the zero, near zero, and even negative interest rates that were meant to stimulate the economy are actually now acting as a drag on growth, and that the central banks have painted themselves into a corner and there is no easy way out. Of course, we have been saying this for years, even before the Fed and other central banks launched their artificial stimulus measures. And that's your news brief.